Welcome to the Pharmacy Inspection Podcast, powered by LyceumCE.com, where we discuss topics related to both sterile and non-sterile compounding pharmacy in an effort to promote compliance and increase quality. Please welcome your hosts, Brian Prince and Seth DePasquale.
Hi, this is Seth DePasquale, board-certified sterile compounding pharmacist. It's Friday and another special edition of the Pharmacy Inspection Podcast. Every Friday, we look at a 483 to try to help us understand and learn more about compliance within sterile compounding. So let's jump right in. The learning objectives for today's 483. By the end of this, you should be able to explain the typical out-of-specification range of potency for many compounded formulations. Discuss a type of testing that is both economical and scientifically sound. Discuss the 5 elements of an SOP on potency testing should include. This week, we'll be looking at one observation the FDA made at a facility concerning the potency testing of their drug products. While there's not much direction given to pharmacies through USP Chapter 797, there's still a need for testing this critical attribute of our preparations. In fact, 797 doesn't give us any requirements for testing for potency or the interval at which we should test for our preparations. USP 1191, stability considerations and dispensing practice, only helps us look for signs of chemical instability, i.e. potency, but still gives us no interval to guide the frequency of potency testing that should be performed. USP Chapter 1191 says, pharmacists should avoid ingredients and conditions that could result in excessive physical deterioration or chemical decomposition of drug preparations, especially when compounding. Pharmacists should establish and maintain compounding conditions that include the ensuring of drug stability to help prevent therapeutic failure and adverse responses. Throughout the rest of USP 1191, it talks about what can cause chemical instability and the signs you should look for in particular dosage forms. However, even 1191 gives us no direction on how frequently potency testing should be done on sterile preparations. So let's look at the observation made by the FDA. This is observation 8. Its testing and release of drug product for distribution did not include appropriate laboratory determination of satisfactory conformance to the identity and strength of each active ingredient prior to release. Specifically, your firm performs potency testing at various random intervals on products produced. However, there is no set schedule or frequency for when potency testing will be performed. Your firm's specification for potency is, it doesn't actually say, but I'm guessing it's greater than 90%, less than 110%. Your firm released 3 products to patients with out-of-specification potency results. And it lists 3 different drug products that had the test results and at what points the results were received and everything. So, furthermore, on potency results that are OOS or out of specification, your firm does not have a procedure in place on how to handle these failed results. Also, your firm did not conduct an investigation into each of these failed potency results that were released to patients. So going by this 483 observation, the FDA would like to see 1, a plan in place and how frequently you're testing your preparations for potency. Also, the acceptable criteria for potency. Is it less or greater than 10% loss or gain of potency? For narrow therapeutic index drugs, that could be a much tighter range. It could be 5%, plus or minus 5%, plus or minus 2%. Written SOPs for the frequency and criteria of your potency testing program, and written SOPs for what to do when a preparation falls out of specification for potency. So those are all things that it looks like the FDA would like to see. So how do compounders come up with a frequency for testing their batches for potency? In manufacturing, there's a concept known as skip lot testing for critical attributes of products for processes that are under a state of control. However, the manufacturer must justify this decision to perform skip lot testing. In an FDA guidance Q6A specifications, test procedures, and acceptance criteria for new drug substances and new drug products, chemical substances, the FDA gives details on what attributes could be chosen for skip lot or periodic testing. Data generated during product development may be sufficient to justify skip lot testing or elimination of some or all attributes of the specification. There's no debate on whether potency testing will give extra assurance that your product or preparation is of the purported and expected potency, which in turn ensures the safety of the preparation for the patient. However, cost does become a factor as extra testing increases the cost of a batch and will be passed on to the patient. I'd like to suggest a scientifically and statistically sound procedure for determining how often compounders test for potency. Let's talk about what you would want to have in an SOP that dictates potency testing for your compounded preparations, both sterile and non-sterile. The SOP should consist of verifying that the compounded preparation is correct at the start of the program by appropriate testing in an independent quality control lab, choosing a sample interval which will define the maximum out-of-specification limits that will be detected. Surprisingly, these intervals can be relatively long. For example, a failure rate greater than 5.5% should be detected if every 25th lot or batch of a preparation is tested, which is a 4% sampling plan. Also, setting up a scheduled or random sampling plan for the preparation to be sent out for potency testing. The SOP should also consist of collecting and recording the testing data and re-verifying the preparation if it fails a test or if changes are made to the formula, procedures, or people making the preparation. The key to a skip lot testing program is the initial testing and results. The initial verification test or test should illustrate that the potency's attribute is under a state of control through the processes and procedures used for compounding that particular preparation. At first, perhaps 3 consecutive verification batches sent off for potency testing to verify all are within the specified range, plus or minus 10%, if that's the case for that particular preparation, should suffice for maintaining that your process and preparation are under a state of control. That being said, if all verification batches are within specification, you can now justify an interval based on statistical data. The table below provides guidance on the frequency for potency testing batches and the percentage of the time it should detect an out-of-specification result. So if we have a sampling percentage rate of 2%, that means you'll be sampling 1 lot out of every 50, and this will detect an out-of-specification failure greater than 10% of the time. A 3% sampling rate is testing 3 lots out of 100 or 1 out of every 33 batches, and should detect an out-of-specification greater than 7% of the time. The rest of the table is on here. Please visit the blog post if you'd like to see that. For regulators, you should be able to show that your process is under a state of control for your compounds, and that you've established a procedure for potency testing, and that you have a procedure in the case of a potency failure. When you have a potency failure, you'll need to figure out the root cause, correct the problem, and revalidate the compound for potency. If you'd like a guide on how to go about finding the root cause, check out the post on the last 483 that we did, Investigations in CAPAs, which goes through root cause investigation and also corrective action, preventative action documentation for the failure or out of specification result. That's all I have for this week, and I hope you join us again for another episode of the Pharmacy Inspection Podcast. And until then, keep raising the bar.
The Pharmacy Inspection Podcast is powered by lyceumce.com, where you can find engaging video-based continuing education programs, as well as a social community for pharmacists and technicians. Join one of the discussion groups or forums and post your questions to the group. Lyceum CE, where fun CE gets done.